You're listening to The Broker's Terminal, a Mass Effect podcast. On this episode of The Broker's Terminal, Season 1, Episode 4, we discuss the differences in gameplay, visual effects, and other changes between the original versions of Mass Effect and the newly released Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Thank you for listening. This is The Broker's Terminal, a Mass Effect podcast. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. We're going to do this again. There may be a B-roll for some of you in the future to listen to, but welcome. Thank you guys for listening. It is I, Rachel, here with my friend Lexi. Hello. I cut you off. Say hello again.
Oh, hello.
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 Lexi and I are in like great moods tonight, so that's why we're kind of laughy. Yeah. But what better mood is there to be in when you're recording a podcast about your favorite game with one of your best friends?
Exactly. So on this episode of The Broker's Terminal, which is Season 1, Episode 4, we're going to discuss the differences in gameplay, visual effects, and other changes between the original versions of Mass Effect and the newly released Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
That is correct. And before, though, some of you may remember this from a couple episodes ago. Before we jump into that conversation, Lexi and I are going to just have a couple of small segments just to keep things light and keep things fun, although it's always light and fun. Some of the topics, I suppose, in the future could be less light and fun. But tonight is going to be pretty cool. And but before we jump into that, which is a really cool topic, we're going to do just kind of break a couple of things down. We're going to have the return of the 2-minute character defense, and we're also just going to talk about kind of something funny that Lexi and I came across over the past week, which was, I forgot where I found. I was in a Discord server run by one of my online buddies, Scout. Shout out to Scout. And somebody posted a "Which Mass Effect species are you?" quiz. And I sent that sucker over to Lexi. And Lexi, what'd you get?
Oh, I got human.
Listen, I don't think that's bad for you. I think that's a good fit.
I mean, I don't think it's bad, but I'm like, damn, I can't even like get an alien quiz result. I'm just plain old me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was stacked. Well, I mean, I'm kind of surprised they included humans in that, but
I mean, humans are still a Mass Effect species.
I mean, yes, but typically, usually you would think that would mean, the aliens, but
well, okay.
it'd be like that.
If you could have gotten something that wasn't human, what were you expecting to get?
Honestly, just based on like that quiz's answers, I was honestly thinking like Asari or maybe even Drell. Like, I don't know. I was kind of there were some of those answers that I was kind of like,
Yeah. A lot of our friends got Quarian as an answer, which was interesting to me. I was kind of surprised. I know at least like 3 or 4 people who got Quarian. I thought I saw one Turian. That might have not been within our community, but I don't know. I thought human worked for you. Look, everybody who you are like really like vehemently a stan of is a human. So I mean, at least like that, it makes sense from that regard, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
You're representing Miranda Lawson's flawlessness by being a human. There you go. I actually was not surprised. I could have seen myself as a human, but I got Asari, which did not really surprise me. I'm over here answering questions like, "What kind of person are you?" I like to make sure that I'm judging things before I'm committing, and blah blah blah. And so it popped up with Liara's little face, and I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." But I thought that was fun. I shared it in a lot of different communities, and people seemed to enjoy it. So if you are listening and you want to know what the heck kind of Mass Effect species you are, that quiz exists. It's out there, and you too can. It's essentially like being sorted into a Hogwarts house. Same kind of thing. Okay, let's move on to the real. Let's be honest. This is the main event of each podcast at this point.
Absolutely.
Is the 2-minute defense. You went first last time. Would you like to go first again?
Yeah, I'm
Great.
fine. I've got my phone with my timer ready.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So for those of you who are maybe listening for the first time, if you missed episode 2, what we do here is you can't see it, obviously, because you're listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can't see it, but I have a Wheel of Fortune-esque wheel with the names of only the companions, not NPCs, but only the companions that you can have through games 1 through 3. I will randomly, we'll spin that wheel, and it will randomly select a character for both Lexi and I to do defense of, or just kind of like a 2-minute spiel on a character from Mass Effect. So I'm going to go ahead and spin for Lexi, and when it is done, she has 2 minutes to do her thing. It is spinning. You guys can hear it spinning.
We've already done Ashley, and you got Legion last
Legion.
time.
Oh, you're about to get a good one here.
Oh boy.
It is who Tristan, our friend Tristan, would consider the best girl. You have 2 minutes to discuss Tali.
Oh, Tali. I've never done the romance for her, but anyway, back to the defense. So Tali Zora is a really complex character in the first example that we get to see from the Quarian fleet. The Quarians, as you may know, were displaced from their homeworld because they created AI in the form of Geth meant to be servants to them to help them build and do all these things, and then they gained sentience and all hell broke loose. And, a lot of people... I don't know if I don't think they hate Tali. I think she's got a lot of merit to her. So I'm trying to figure out what I would defend for her. But I feel like a lot of people give her grief in terms of why she chooses to do certain things, or that, she doesn't necessarily join you until stuff with regards to the fleet is taken care of across both Mass Effect 2, because you do meet her right away on Freedom's Progress, and then later in the game of Mass Effect 3. This is hard, but I feel like, Tali can be complex because she has such a devotion to her upbringing, to her homeworld, to her people, and yet she gives so much of herself to Shepard and their crew and to the mission at hand. And maybe people could give her shit for bringing stuff back to the fleet, which, by the way, Ashley was right. But she was doing so in order to help advance her people, and, who already have been displaced and were, in a disadvantageous position. So to me, it made sense in the context, but she really found herself. And I feel that, like Ashley, she actually gets a lot of development from the first game to the third, where she, was in her pilgrimage and managed to get on one hell of a journey with Shepard and fighting alongside them. And she's the hippiest Quarian you're ever going to meet. And if any of you get that reference, God bless.
Well done. The only thing I would add, which you basically said without saying it, is she's one of 2 characters that is with Shepard the whole time. So, she has a huge opportunity for character development.
Yeah, it'd be, yeah, because Liara got her own DLC, but technically, yeah, she wasn't a squad mate in
right.
2.
Yeah.
For the main game.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, her and Garrett.
Go ahead.
Garrett.
Yeah, her and Garrett. Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, I couldn't really find much to, not a lot of people hate her for any reason, and
yeah.
That one was a little challenging, I'm not gonna lie. But that reference, I believe there was a Tali rap on YouTube aeons ago. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find it. Yeah, it's called Exile This Boshtats. Yeah, that was published back in 2013. So there you go.
I love it. I think it's great. Yeah, I think that also potentially the reason it's hard to, like you said, defend her is that she's great. And the 2-minute defense doesn't have to even be a defense. It could just be, I love this character, and here's why. So, cool. All right, here's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do my role. I'm gonna, once again, so Lexi got somebody who it's really easy for her to talk about, and I'm gonna roll right now, and I'm gonna get like Caden or Zaid or something. So here we go. Oh my, I cannot defend this character.
Oh boy, who did you get?
I got the one, the only Jacob. All right, so we're going to talk about Jacob.
Oh boy.
Jacob Taylor. I remembered his name, which is surprising. So Jacob Taylor is a companion that you get in Mass Effect 2. I don't really have much to say about Jacob, except actually, here's what I can say. So I think that he's really boring. I think people think Caden's boring, and I think Jacob is so much more boring that it makes Caden look great. And so, unfortunately for, oh my gosh, the scene that, for those of you watching on YouTube, the scene just changed to like Nihilus dead on the floor. Oh my god. I'm sorry. So anyway, so Jacob is just you meet him and he's like, yeah, I was in the Alliance. I'm over at Cerberus because I didn't like what the Alliance was doing, and I liked Cerberus plans and this and that. And the thing about Jacob is that he had the opportunity to be really interesting, except that they threw all of these kind of not great stereotypes that are often seen surrounding the stories of black men at him. I had like a poor father figure and, all these different things, and it just kind of didn't add to the allure of Jacob. So, he's even though you see Miranda and you hear Miranda first in Mass Effect 2, you meet Jacob first, and I just think that they kind of missed the mark with making him interesting enough to want to keep around. And then, with my last 30 seconds here of the 2-minute quote defense, they also, if you romance Jacob, or not, but if you romance Jacob, which you can do as female Shepard, and then you choose to want to pursue that romance again in Mass Effect 3, he is with another woman, she's pregnant, and it's only been 6 months later, and it's just, unfortunately for Jacob, he just wasn't a very well-rounded or written character. So my defense of Jacob is that the writers did him dirty, and it wasn't really his fault. That was 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yep. Unfortunately, they really did play on the racist tropes. I know that kind of, and also additionally with his romance, I know when we talked to Tanaya, she mentioned how cheesy some of the romance lines were, and she couldn't continue romancing him. So again, it's just unfortunate because, Miranda and Jacob were arguably like Cerberus's Ashley and Caden, hoping to give you, your kind of human companions for those of us who like to be boring and romance humans. Yes, that's a self dig at that's an entire dig at myself. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and I learned from a friend that I mentioned this before, but in that episode, but. It seems to be that they added Bryn in there, and for whatever reason, and she actually tells you that it was like she pursued Jacob intentionally, even though she knew that him and Shepard were involved. And it was just kind of a whole shitty sort of deal with him. And I mean, we'll have a whole conversation about the romances with Shepard's and how much FemShep got screwed over, and not in the fun way, about her romance options. But basically, they just played up all these tropes, and it's really unfortunate because Jacob, in terms of a nice moral character, he's he kind of saw that the Alliance wasn't doing enough and went to Cerberus trying to do more, he was trying to do the good thing, And I think there could have been a lot of interesting conflicts. Again, how we got to see Miranda, who was arguably Cerberus's second in command, tell the Elusive Man to go to hell, and resigned. And yeah, Jacob left too, but we never got his kind of half of that. And I think we could have played up the complexity of his role in it too. But
he didn't even really leave. He kind of went back to Cerberus, and then afterwards that's when the scientists were like, we got to get out of here.
Well, they no.
Am I wrong?
They had I just played this a little while
Oh,
ago, so
okay,
that's why
fair.
it's fresh in
Yeah,
my
go
head.
ahead, please do.
They had realized that things were bad, but they had defected. That's why you have to rescue them from the station, is because Cerberus is coming after them.
No, yeah, of
They'd
course.
already defected.
Did they defect though, but like when Miranda said screw you, or like did he go back to Cerberus and then they defected?
I think they probably, after that whole shit show with the end of the end of the collector mission, I'm pretty sure they all, like, if Miranda left, why would you stay?
I don't know. I think that's what I've seen people argue, and they say like that's why Jacob also sucks, is because he still went back and had to, and then only defected when his baby mama wanted to defect. So that's why I'm curious. That's what I was saying. I knew that they defected, for sure.
Yeah,
So.
it's unfortunate. Like I said, it's just unfortunate that the first black male squad mate you got to have in this game ended up being not only a character playing up on stereotypes, but also didn't really get that much character writing, development.
For sure.
Where like, I know people call Caden boring, and I'm trying to give this man a chance at some point. But I think a lot of people just don't. They view generally good characters as boring.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that challenges the morality or whatever you want to call it. But I think Jacob could have been as good as Caden if they didn't rely on racist stereotypes.
Agree. Fully agree. But yes, so those were our 2-minute defenses. Let the record show that Lexi has gotten 2 great characters to talk about. Legion is a great character. I just have not done in-depth study on him as much as I have on other characters. Maybe I will be the one to be bestowed the opportunity to speak about Miranda. That would be ideal. And then you'll probably get Liara, so that's the only reason I'm saying it. Okay, so moving on to the main topic of tonight, which was talking about the gameplay, visual, etc. Differences between the original release of the games and as compared to the newly released Mass Effect Legendary Edition. The first thing that I think we wanted to jump into was talking about Mass Effect 1 specifically, because it's the most noticeably different game. Mass Effect 2 and 3 in Mass Effect Legendary Edition look great, and you can certainly, as if you're a gamer who's played the original trilogy a lot, or even just a few times, comparatively you can tell that they've cleaned things up. But certainly Mass Effect 1 it was literally like playing a new game.
Absolutely. I second that opinion strongly. You took the words right out of my mouth, actually. I know a lot of people tease me, but I always found that the original Mass Effect 1 truly was one of my top 10 favorite games. I love the whole system of exploration for your side quests and going to all the little planets and having to land on it with the Mako, and finding all the side stuff, and additionally like sort of the more RPG system that they had in the first game. I really just loved how big it was, how pretty it was, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's so bad, it's so hard to play, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's a game from 2007, so you got to stop thinking about 2021 releases or 2020 releases and go back to a simpler time in gaming. But it was just something that always captivated me. I played the first one on PC when I bought the trilogy set, so that the purposes of modding. But it was just a game that always stood out to me as being kind of iconic. Like, yeah, Mass Effect 2 is a really great game, and after I've replayed it recently with the Legendary Edition, I'm also like, wow, this was really well done as well.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, and then ME3 kind of became the action shooter because it was trying to compete and whatever. Sure. But I do think that the original Mass Effect stands the test of time. And so for me, it was an extra special treat getting to have Mass Effect 1 essentially really remastered, not only obviously they've done all the the textures and the graphics and all that, but just the added detail, the added atmosphere. When they first announced the Legendary Edition, you saw the photos on the website being able to compare, like the screenshots comparing where you could slide the slider back and forth. Furmire was stunning. And for me, that was just such a treat because, yes, it felt like a new game to me, and it brought back that childlike wonder I had when I first played the first game originally. Excuse me. And it just felt so good to get through. And I mean, yeah, it can be a bit of a slog of a game because you're trying to do all the side quests and find all the little elements and things. But, even so, it just felt brand new. And being able to, and I guess I'm going to go into one particular change that I noticed for me, was the fact that now they had, because in the original trilogy, the first Mass Effect game didn't actually really have a face code system. They did not have, so you would make your Shepard from scratch in the first game, and then when it came into ME2, it would make a face code based on the sort of features that you had from that game, but there wasn't a distinct code. So you couldn't, like, if you made, your one Shepard in Mass Effect 1 and then decided that, oh, I want to change her face and replay, you would never, you don't get a code. You couldn't just, like, start over and then tweak it. You'd have to just, make all the sliders the same as you did from the first game. So they implemented the same head morph system, so that way you could have a more consistent Shepard from the first game. So it was really a treat for me to have my custom Shepard, her face as I like it, in the first game, as it should be, rather than kind of like her Mass Effect 1 creation and then how different her face looked throughout the original 3 games. So I always thought that was cool because then what you could do is take your old face code from, say, Mass Effect 2 or 3 and then plunk it into Mass Effect 1 Legendary Edition, and obviously with a little bit of tweaking, because they added more skin tones, thankfully, and stuff like that. They added some more hair and everything. You could pretty much just remake your Shepard. Play that game, and for me that was huge because now I had my favorite Shepard on my screen. And just as an aside from that, they actually ported the default Jane Shepard, her ME3 appearance, into the first game. So for you default FemShep players, you finally got your Uncanny Valley face in the game.
Yeah, and the one thing that I was going to add on to that, which you mentioned, was they added extra hairstyles, extra skin tones, things like that. I pretty much kept my original face. I had to change a few things. When I brought my my Shepard over with the code, it made my Shepard very dark skinned, which is fine. That's just not what my Shepard, that rendition of my Shepard, looks like. So I had to play around a little bit. But one thing that I do typically with my original characters is I make them rock short hair because I love short hair on women, but I can't rock it because I don't have the cojones to do so. But I always like to put short hair on my OCs, so I gave her the the Judy Garland cut, which in some scenes it looked a little wanky, but I freaking loved it. I love her, and it was so great to have just a little bit more diversity. The only thing really that I was secretly hoping for, I didn't think it was going to happen, and once they kind of showed everything, I knew it wouldn't. But right when they announced that they were going to be making changes to that, I kind of wondered if maybe they would have put some more of the Andromeda hairstyles in there. And they did okay.
How in Andromeda, not at first, but
they've changed it
where they unlocked. They didn't have gender restrictions on the hair,
correct,
or the makeup or anything. So like. I remember I went back to Andromeda after they did that, and I chopped my rider's ponytail off and gave her that sort of butchy-looking pompadour.
Yeah, that's what mine has too. Yeah, mine is the same.
Like and I was hoping that they would have done that, but
yeah,
unfortunately they didn't. That was one disappointment. I was hoping because there's like some of the dude hairs would look really great on a FemShep.
Yes,
I'm not gonna lie,
they would. Fully. I don't even know what the male Shepard hair looks like. because I'm
There's
never
your
plays the Master.
typical buzz cuts. There's like one that kind of looks like my hair when it's grown out a little bit, and not styled back with the hair product. um, there's, and they actually did have like a proper Afro textured flat top, which is what I use for my dude ship who looks like Idris Elba. Um, and they added, they added more of the like the Sloan style braids for Fem Shep and
Yes.
Dude Shep, I believe.
Those they did add, which was I thought that was really cool. I almost went with them, but I didn't. But
and yeah, and like I said, I just wish they kind of had it unlocked because I think that would have given us some nicer options.
Sure.
But
yeah, I think overall, certainly with the character development changes, like the character creation changes, I meant, that right off the bat, I think set the tone when I put when I downloaded the game and it unlocked, which was a whole thing for me, and I was finally able to play. Just going into the character creation, I could tell like, oh my gosh, this game is going to be off the chain. And if I can just echo what Lexi said regarding just like this game like standing out, not separate from, but differently from 2 and 3, just because of the story and it being the first, what's the word that you use? The first installment, and really just capturing gamers with its story so quickly. Now having an added, like, updated look to it. Lexi, I think did you say like this game stands I think you said it like stands the test of time, and now even more so because of the changes that they made. There's somebody who I've recently met, and she's into gaming, and we were talking about our favorite games, and she said she had never played Mass Effect before, and she actually like 2-3 days after meeting me like told me she bought it, and so she's been playing it, and she was like, yeah, the game's really clunky, and which is fine. I understand that she feels that way, but I think back to when I played Mass Effect on the 360, and this game runs like butter compared to that game. I mean, just the mechanical changes they made, the gameplay changes they made, it is literally a joy to play, and I liked it the first time I played it, but the playthroughs that I had after that, before the Legendary Edition, were hard because I got so used to Mass Effect 2 and 3 that when I came back to Mass Effect 1, I was like, oh my god, this is just tough to look at. But I think with the changes they made to Legendary Edition, it stands the test of time even more. So I really liked that you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh god, there was something I was going to say, and then the thought just
it left you.
It's so hot here. I cannot think.
Sure. Well, I have something else to add. Maybe if I talk, it'll trigger. Yeah. So the other change, and I mentioned it very briefly, but the other change that I was going to say that really stood out to me was, Lexi you talked about the graphical changes and the texture, and like, I'm actually looking right now, I think this is from Legendary Edition, maybe it's not, but I'm looking at this scene of Eden Prime right now, and it looks like the Legendary Edition, and it's, it's just so beautiful. But I think too that the changes they made to the user interface, the HUD that you see, making it look more like Mass Effect 2 certainly, and Mass Effect 3, also just adds another element to kind of like the continuity of the series. And one of the little segments, one of the notes we have written is kind of what we maybe would have liked to have seen, and I'll just add this in here since we're talking about Mass Effect 1, but the literal only thing that I wish they had changed in the Legendary Edition that they didn't was using thermal clips. And I know that in Mass Effect 2 you have that part where Miranda's like, we use thermal clips now, blah, blah, blah. Like, they could have still had that. We could have used thermal clips in 1. Nobody would have known.
I mean, okay, listen, maybe it's just because I like to defend Mass Effect 1 a lot, but you know what? I like the not thermal clips, because that, I don't know, I just get into a much better rhythm of having to reload my gun, especially if you use an assault rifle. In Mass Effect 3, I actually put on the mod, like in-game gun mod, to have bigger clips. I always build my Shepard to have more ammunition as a soldier class, because every goddamn time I'm stuck behind cover because there's banshees here and banshees there, and I run out of bullets.
And that's the beauty of this conversation and Mass Effect, is that we all play differently. I not that Lexi doesn't play first person shooters, I know she does. I am a reload junkie. I was playing Splitgate today, and I would shoot once and I would reload. Like, so for me, when I'm playing Mass Effect 1, even now, I was playing Mass Effect 1 a couple weeks ago, and I knew that I don't reload. And the amount of grenades that I threw, because the reload is the same button as the grenade throwing on a controller, and almost blowing myself up, was astronomical because I want to reload. So that's for me, though, of all of the things that Mass Effect had changed in it, that's like in Mass Effect 1, the single thing that I would have wanted. Otherwise, they did everything else wonderfully, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I remember what I was going to talk about, the Mako. I don't
Yes.
know how that it left my brain, because the Mako is iconic. It's truly a beautiful machine. And now I sound like the arguments that James and Cortez have.
Yes.
But anyway, the Mako. So they added in new controls to try and mitigate the way that the tanky Mako handles when you're exploring all these planets. Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't raised to be how am I going to say this? I was raised to be tough, but I switched back to, it's in the options, you can switch back to the legacy controls. And it just let the Mako be a little more freer. And for me, that was more fun. You kind of get a little mindless traversing all these extremely sharp angled planets in this six-wheeled contraption where your squad mates are probably screaming at you as you continually launch yourself off the cliffs and down into the depths of hell. But to me, that's the best part of Mass Effect 1.
Sure. Not the story. Not the characters.
Not the guns.
Yeah.
No, the Mako.
Sure.
I think that was great. That, for the people that like to complain and whine about these things, they gave you the training wheels, if you will, while letting the adults put on the legacy controls and have fun with it. And again, I'm just teasing y'all. I don't mean that seriously. You play the game how you want to play it.
I'm one of the children. I strongly valued the updated controls, if only because I probably didn't know how to turn the legacy controls on. But
that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm only teasing. But I think it was great to be able to at least do that and have that good old memory there. I guess. And again, we have a whole episode in the works where we're going to be talking about the romances and sexuality and stuff. But I guess one other thing, the changes that I wished for, that I wasn't hopeful for, because I knew how BioWare operates, but and I know a lot of people on the internet were visibly upset, but and I wasn't upset by it. I was just, the bar was already low, so I wasn't disappointed, was the fact that they didn't change any of the cut romances. So I know we've definitely touched on this before, but basically Too Long Didn't Read. After the first Mass Effect came out in 2007, Fox News specifically got real upset about the fact that there was like blatant quote unquote lesbian quote unquote sex with FemShep and Liara available, which if you remember correctly, Mass Effect 1 actually did have nudity in their romance scenes.
It did, yes.
Which BioWare, bring that back. But they got pretty upset because, as much as they claim the Asari are monogendered and don't really care about gender, all the Asari somehow are all feminine presenting with breasts. So, conservatives and people who watch Fox got all riled about this. And so, unfortunately, years later, when they released Mass Effect 2, they cut a lot of bisexual options for FemShep, including but not limited to Jack, Miranda, Tally, even Jacob supposedly for Dude Shep, and possibly Garrus. I'm not sure about the Garrus one, but either way, they cut a bunch, which is why the modders are able to find some of the voice lines that were initially recorded by Jennifer Hale for FemShep towards those specific romances, and then the rest weren't finished and they weren't implemented. So to me, that was something that was like kind of hopeful in the back of my mind. I knew they weren't going to probably, but there was still that little flicker of hope that maybe they would. And same thing with Ashley and Caden. At least, you know, Caden did get to be a male shepherd romance by the third game, but not in the first. You know, that was one little thing that I was kind of just like, oh, you know, they could have done that. They could have, but I understand that logistically speaking, also, they would have had to fully record and rehire Jennifer Hale to finish recording what they started and, you know, put those in there. And same with Mark Muir, of course. So I get why they didn't, but I'm still just a little
miffed.
Little disappointed.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and I think that that's, you know, you and I certainly have discussed it a lot, but I think that that's a fair thing for many people to be discouraged by. You know, even you have, hold on a sec. You have even performers like Courtney, oh my God, her last name is Taylor. Courtney Taylor,
yep.
Who is voicing... who's voicing her interest in wanting a FemShep and Jack romance to be canon and things like that. So certainly, you know, you're not the only one who's feeling that way. I obviously have a strong, you know, Miranda's great. I super appreciate the fact that I'm playing on PC now and have the mods to be able to romance her as FemShep. But just like you had said, at the same token, I understand why they couldn't do it in this, which maybe leads us to the last bit of conversation regarding the changes. I know we didn't talk about Mass Effect 2 and 3 that much. There weren't really that many changes.
Other than like some environmental,
correct,
or like atmospheric, like in Miranda's loyalty mission. Just for an example, I noticed like they added more crates or like moved some around to give you kind of that bigger, like where you're standing in the warehouse with that Asari guard or whatever that Miranda like yeets across the room. What an icon. Anyway, you know, there was just different little like things they added here and there that made it different. You know, you can do side-by-side shots and go, oh yeah, hey, they added this crate in the background, or they added more NPCs or a little more detail to the NPCs maybe.
Right.
But, you know, just little things like that in 2 and 3, but they really didn't add too much notice other than, you know, the ever controversial removal of the
ass
butt shot.
I'll say it.
Of Miranda.
I don't know if it was that controversial. I think most people were probably. I think it's
guys that we're all.
I think it's like
pixelated ass.
I think it's like 4 loud guys. Because there's plenty of guys I know who are like, yeah, I mean, I get it.
Oh, I know.
I know,
but I'm just saying, the ones who were complaining about it, if you remember, we had that one guy on
Twitter
like block us. That was hilarious.
God, yeah, that's right. Oh, I blocked him out of my brain. That's really funny. That was a good change, you know, I think, and
absolutely. In the original, there was no need for it. There was absolutely no need to have Miranda like putting her heart out to you. Meanwhile, the camera is fixated at hip level on her, unfortunately, skin tight catsuit ass. Like, there was no rhyme or reason for it, and I think, you know, it's not just a matter of people quote unquote complaining about it. It was just not necessary, and you know, entirely took away from her character. And as we all know, Yvonne Strahovski doesn't really participate in any Mass Effect things, and that is because a lot of the fandom, unfortunately, you know, connected her. Yeah, she's Miranda's face, but she has said it herself that wasn't her body, and all these weirdos over-sexualized her and treated her weirdly. So there was an impact of that.
Yeah, and you know, I wrote an article on my support of the. It's not really censorship, but my support of the changes that's been made. I use the word censorship to clickbait, but you know, like I wrote about it, and one of the things that I had mentioned was that not only from the fandom, and I'm not giving a pass to people in the fandom for behaving that way, but I'll give them more of a pass than the people in the media who all they did was ask Yvonne and other actresses. I believe that the actress who Ash, I always say her last name wrong, but the woman who portrayed Tally, I think she had a similar experience. And I think that Yvonne also, they were asked all these questions that were really only about their bodies and not really focused on anything else outside of their bodies. And so while I don't give a pass to men and women and guys, gals, and non-binary pals, who are over-sexualizing characters, I still give them more of a pass than I do the media, who can't figure out how to just ask a question about a character's story. And so I think for me, that's the most frustrating piece of it, and why I was totally on board with the changes they made to those scenes.
Yeah, and it's the media and also BioWare themselves, because they ultimately, at the end of the day, were the ones who wrote, Miranda to be this femme fatale, and to have that outfit that she wears, and originally included those shots. So they're not without blame here entirely, but at least they were trying to make up for it somehow. Unfortunately, I think the damage has been done. I don't think we're ever, unfortunately, I mean, we can try and petition all our little hearts want, you and I, to try and get Yvonne, participating in an 7-day event or something. But at this point, I think, just based on that experience, I don't particularly blame her. But
me neither. And
sad,
yeah, and kind of the bow that I'll put on this conversation is it's not as though BioWare was saying there can't be sexuality or sexual scenes. I'm gonna really, this is a little mature, folks, but Shepard, I think regardless of whether it's male or female Shepard, is still putting their entire mouth on Liara's nipple, like in the Mass Effect 3 sex scene. like that still exists, which is fine, but I think it's fine, but that is a scene that is about a sexual interaction. And there's a difference between a scene that is about a sexual interaction and a scene that is about a character speaking about their family in a way that is not sexual in any capacity. And that's the difference. They did not remove any sex scenes. They didn't remove all shots of Miranda's ass. There's a scene when you're romancing her where it does like a whole scale of her body, and it's when you're flirting with her, when she's flirting back with you. Okay, that makes sense. Miranda is a phenomenally beautiful woman. She knows it. She uses her assets, pun intended. But there's a difference between a moment where she's, and any woman, and
her sister.
Yeah, and I'm saying she's, and I hesitated for a second because I realized she's not autonomous. She's a character who's been written. But I'm saying this on behalf of women and men and everybody in between who's ever been objectified. A person gives permission for their body to be admired. There's a time and place.
She literally says to Shepard, "Well, perhaps I wouldn't mind if you admired my
exactly
body." That is literally what she says. So in that context, it makes sense. But when you have these serious moments about her sister and her terrible, abusive piece of shit father, it doesn't. And even the same in Mass Effect 3, when there was that part, I believe they had a really bad one when you meet her in that Citadel apartment, and she's fessing up to you that she wanted to put a control chip in your head and that it was the elusive man who told her no. Again, there was a weird, and in that angle,
I don't even remember that.
Her ass was really weird shape too. They didn't even look at how anatomy actually works. So, I'm glad that also got kind of removed. I have yet to get to in the romance mod. I haven't played since I got the first little scene, but I'm looking forward to that one too.
Yeah, I forgot that one even existed.
Yeah, you go see her and you
Oh,
have the
that I know.
conversation,
I just don't.
and then
Yeah. Oh.
she's Shepard says something like, "Oh, still cautious, Miss Lawson," and then I forget what she says, but um, I think all in all, like I think a lot of people love to complain about anything and everything on the
Sure.
internet,
Of
as we
course.
all know. But I think these are good steps, and I mean, obviously, I'm sure between 2007 and now, a lot of people have left BioWare. A lot of new people have come to BioWare, and while still having some of the great writers on the team. So, going forward, I think they're going to learn from the feedback and kind of learn about these things, that what people are saying, and hopefully, continuing with that. Now, that said, we are on a little bit of a topic of the sexuality, but I really hope they bring back the nudity, because I'm sorry, but trying to romance Samantha Trainer and Shepard just walks into that shower wearing their full ass uniform. Come on.
Yeah, I'm fully with you, and I think there was nudity in Andromeda.
There was.
So,
and, there was
and in
nudity
Inquisition.
Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah, so I think Mass Effect Next. That's what we're calling it. It's a working title. Mass Effect Next. There's going to be nudity in it, 100%.
I would hope.
Maybe Liara will have nipples. We'll see. So,
But this brings up the question, though: do Asari actually have nipples? Are they?
yes, PB has nipples.
Okay.
PB has.
Good to know.
For those of you who are curious and you haven't seen it, PB has a phenomenal bosom. And we're going to move on from
Phenomenal
here.
bosom.
Phenomenal bosom. That's the name of this episode. The Broker's Terminal, Phenomenal Bosom. Okay, so kind of last but not least here as we wrap up, I think that you had posed, do we get a full remake at any point? What are your thoughts on that? And just kind of any final thoughts on the changes that we experienced in Mass Effect Legendary Edition?
Well, there's always the argument of, oh, well, what quantifies remaster and remake? Remake to me is when you're taking the original game and changing it. You're recreating the game to some capacity, but you are changing a lot. Maybe not necessarily the fundamental parts, but you are changing large aspects. Whereas the remaster is just, kind of slapping that new coat of paint with a little bit of few tweaks and fixes here and there. So to me, as someone who's been a fan of Mass Effect now since 2012, almost a decade in the making, would BioWare get my money for a full remaster? You absolutely bet they would. I think that we won't. I don't want to say we won't. Maybe in another 5 to 10 years, when they're, because everybody and their mother is making remakes or remasters, bringing classics back with the newer technology that we are getting as we go on, for people to be able to play them on the latest consoles or their PCs in high definition. And it is a viable market. I mean, we all know Legendary Edition was more successful than they thought it would be, as we mentioned a couple episodes ago. And, because it's a series that I adore so much, I would definitely go for a remaster. Or sorry, a remake. Now I'm getting my words mixed up.
That's okay.
And and like I said, we talked about the sexuality. I would love for those previously the forbidden romances to be released and recorded. Now, I know if they were going to add content, depending on availability, or for example, the voice actor who portrayed Zaid, Robin Sachs, he passed away a few years ago. So they might have some limitations there. And whether or not that's something, I'm sure someone at BioWare has probably proposed it, maybe for a certain anniversary, like, 2000 the 20th anniversary would be 2027, which is only 6 years away. That's not that far. Maybe they might come up with something for the 20th anniversary of Mass Effect. We don't know.
I'm gonna guess the new game, but that's just me.
I hope we get the new game before 2027.
I don't know. I don't know, dude. It's only 6 years away. I mean, let's be honest.
But how long? But the last, but technically Mass Effect 3 came out in 2012 with Citadel coming out in 2013, so it's already been 7 years since then. So if they've been coming up with something, come on,
but they have had a game since 2013.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh right, Andromeda. But again, that was the slightly different studio.
I'm being a little bit of a spoil sport, but
I know.
I think it would actually. You said that, and my brain was like, like my brain went off, and I was like, they're totally going to release Mass Effect next for the 20-year anniversary of Mass Effect.
I can't see them taking another 6 years.
I'm happily going to be a 37-year-old woman playing Mass Effect next.
Here's the thing. I don't think they would have released that teaser trailer.
No, I know.
I realized they did that back in December because they had the Legendary Edition in the work. That was coming. They knew that was coming, and that a teaser trailer for the next Mass Effect would get people talking and thinking about Mass Effect, and it definitely helped probably promote their sales. However, I can't see them taking 6 years to make another game when they've been churning out games typically every few years.
Maybe that's the problem.
Well, debatable. But also, they do have Dragon Age 4, BioWare does. Now, again, these are all separate sects of the studio, but with some overlap. But Dragon Age 4 news has been kind of hinted around, saying that something's got to happen soon, and they've been hinting at it at past game events. So
I'm just going to point out that Dragon Age, you're going to come through the microphone and strangle me. Dragon Age Inquisition came out in 2014. And it is...
No, 2015.
2014, really? I believe. Yeah, because didn't it launch with...
Hold on.
Okay, it was 2014.
Okay, yeah. Okay, it was late 2014.
Okay.
It was November.
It's also almost late 2021, and that is 7 years. Y'all, in 6 years from now, when I'm right, I'm going to come back to this episode of this podcast, and I'm going to be like, because Lexi and I hopefully will be friends many years in the future, and I'm going to be like, Lexi, do you remember that night when we sat recording this podcast, and I was right? And she'll be like, great, our friendship was lovely.
Okay, but if we're going to talk Dragon Age games for a hot second here, I know this is a Mass Effect podcast, but Dragon Age Origins came out in 2009, then Dragon Age 2 came out in 2011, and then Inquisition was 2014, and then Trespasser DLC was in 2015. That's what I was thinking of.
I'm just saying.
But here's the other thing. Here is the other thing that's different is they had Andromeda, and it didn't do as well. So obviously then they have to kind of recoup and think about where they're going to spend their money, right? Because they didn't make as much, and so therefore, had to think about some things, and there was thoughts of oh God, what's going to happen to that studio and all that, right? So that's probably why there's been a bit of a delay.
I fully agree with you. I fully agree.
Now, with the success of the Legendary Edition and knowing that there's still a shit ton of Mass Effect players out there, I think now that might ramp up production. Now, again, and also we do have to account for the fact that COVID has made things difficult for in-person working. Game studios, shout out to Respawn for trying to work on Apex Legends mostly from home at the height of everything. So they are struggling to do things that way remotely, but I have a feeling, maybe, and this is just me posturing and we're getting late, but
I love it, dude.
They had the idea for Mass Effect Next sitting in the wings going, we could make this, but we want to see what happens with the Legendary Edition. One of the things we said in episode 2, where we spoke about what comes next for Mass Effect, was that the reason we brought up that news report about the Legendary Edition selling better than they expected, we literally said there's probably a correlation between those sales and how it's going to affect the production of the next game. I fully agree with you on that. I just think it's so hard to know
what the timeline is. I think that again, I'm people hate me in different servers that I'm in because I'm anti Shepard being alive. But like I think that trailer was simply more of a tease than anything else we know. So the only single possible thing that we got from that is static is that Liara is going to be in it. Climbing up the Reaper, as we talked about, like means nothing. So with that being said, like I just think it's so hard to know when next is going to be. But the nice thing is, we know it's coming. And if the Legendary Edition and the beauty of Legendary Edition, Mass Effect Andromeda, the facial stuff, yes, not good. The rest of the game, pretty aesthetically pleasing. It's a very pretty game. The combat related graphics and the biotic and the tech power visual effects are very pretty. The next Mass Effect has the capacity to be some of the best looking video game art ever. So yeah, I think we hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Cool. Lexi, you had such good points to make, and I thank you for going on this conversational journey with me this evening.
Always.
Before we sign off, I didn't mention this in the intro, so I'm going to mention it now. We have officially launched a Patreon. If you are somebody who is interested in supporting us, there are 3 tier options. 2 of them have some bonus content that you will be able to access as a member of the Patreon. You have special roles and access in the Discord, as well as I said, some bonus content and features. It's patreon.com/brokersterminal. And if you are somebody who's interested in supporting us monthly, we thank you. All of the proceeds, if you will, that go towards us through the Patreon or anywhere else. If you follow me on Twitch and you send me a donation that says this is for Brokers Terminal, it all goes back towards the podcast. We have some pipe dreams of paying money to get guests on our show, and that is literally what we would want to put that towards. So
praying for that for the day we get Alex Hilton.
Oh my God, I want to sit down with Allie Hillis, of course, but I think I'd do Alex first. Like I think she would just be such a lovely. She'd be great. She already agreed to do the other podcast I was on for a while. We just didn't have the funds, so I think she would totally do it.
For sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening. This was our longest one to date, which is totally awesome and cool. Thank you guys. Catch you soon, and yeah, thanks for listening. If you liked this podcast, please rate, like, and comment on your platform of choice. To show further support, you can follow us on Twitch, Twitter, and subscribe to our channels on YouTube. Everything discussed today will be archived on the Broker's Terminal. After all of the Galaxy secrets are at the Shadow Broker's fingertips.